Hi, this is Coach Hall, and this is another edition of Parenting Talk. Today, I have a special guest, a good friend of mine, and an expert in the field of nutrition, over 30 years experience, and the author of Superpowers, A Busy Woman's Guide to Health and Happiness. She is a holistic life coach, lifestyle coach, and I'm going to let her talk to you about what it is that she does, because she does a lot. What do you say, Adita?
Hi, thank you for that. So yes, I've been in this industry for quite a long time, and I do everything basically nutritional and exercise oriented. Several years ago, as a mom of two, I actually wrote an online course for parents called Nutritional Brilliance, where I teach parents how to feed their kids for growth and development, immune support, mental focus and clarity. And it's been like such a whirlwind with that, because parents need so much information. We're all trying to do the best we can, but we weren't born with an instruction manual. So I try to provide that instruction manual as many times as I possibly can.
Absolutely. I feel the same way when it comes to what I do in parenting coaching. I get that a lot from parents as well. Why didn't these babies come with instruction manuals? You know?
And a troubleshooting guide.
Yeah, troubleshooting guide. And why are they different when they're teenagers from when they were a kid? What happened to them, right?
Yep, absolutely, man. So many changes.
All right, so today's topic is nutrition and exercise. And we're just going to launch in here and start asking some questions, and hopefully there'll be answers that you guys are looking forward to in your life. The first question is, why nutrition and healthy eating, and for what purpose does this serve us?
Well, basically, food is fuel. It's not comfort, socialization, or the thing you do when you break up with a mate. And unfortunately, as a society, that's what we've decided food is for. And it really is not. You know, I met with a client earlier today, and I said, what is your favorite car? And he's like, that Lamborghini that's outside. And I'm like, and do you take it to the cheapest gas station and just give it regular gasoline? And he looked at me mortified. And I'm like, well, that's a fine-tuned engine. And so are you. And so are your kids. You know, especially with kids, we have these, you know, they're fine-tuned engines. I always say we're growing an adult from scratch. So whatever we feed our children is how their health is going to develop when they're 50. But when you look at a 2-year-old, you can't even conceptualize that you're going to take responsibility for their health of a 50-year-old because they're 2. So it's food is fuel, and that really is what it's all about. And so when we're choosing the right types of foods for ourselves, it's about nutrients. It's not about calories. It's not about all this other stuff that marketing companies like to try to put into us. It's really, we need nutrients and we need water, and that's it. But the key is we need to get them from natural sources. Super.
All I would add to that, because we're singing off the same song sheet here, quite honestly. You know, in my coaching, there's a number of courses. I have a course called Happy Life Certification, and one of the courses within that certification process is called The Keys to an Optimum Life. And one of the keys is that we are beings of energy. So, and there's 3 components to it. There's the intake of energy, which is the nutritional aspect that you're talking about, right? Or we can put crap in our bodies, and guess what's going to happen, right? The other 2 components are the utilization of it, or the modulation of it, and what we're doing with it. And the third part is recuperation, okay? We need to recuperate. So it's basically sleep, what we're doing, and what we're putting into our bodies, right? Those are the 3 parts of energy. And as long as our energy is sort of at a steady level, we're able to perform at a steady level. But if it's all over the place, guess how we're going to operate in life? So, you know, we're basically talking about the same things here. I love what you said about children and being, you know, under construction. I have a same type of saying, which is children are just adults under construction, right? So it's the same idea. So it's fantastic. Yeah. And guys, Adita and I didn't talk about this before, so this is thing going on here.
Well, actually, kind of to throw it even one more step in there. So in my book, I teach the 4 pillars of health. So the 4 pillars of health are exercise and movement, food and nutrition, sleep and relaxation, and happiness. And that's pretty much what you just said.
Wow. This wasn't scripted, folks. I promise you.
Not at all.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. What age should parents begin practicing healthy eating uh, preparation?
From the get-go. So, I mean, if you take it from the womb, if you take it to a mom who's nursing, the foods that she puts into her body, actually those flavors are going to go out in the mother's milk, and they're going to get, and that the child is actually going to start having flavors. And then by the time they start to eat real food, you need to keep the process going from there. I think unfortunately what ends up occurring is, especially parents, they get all frazzled and they think they run out of time, or they just think that like, oh, my kid's not going to eat. So if they're not going to eat, let me just give them this because it's quicker. And unfortunately, what they do is they start creating a palate that is really craving sugars. And so when I teach sugar, it's sugar, flour, dairy, and of course, only for the adults, alcohol. But we get that palate from having too many of the processed carbohydrates. And those are your quick meals. You know, I had, this was a kind of a funny story. I was doing a lecture to school, and mac and cheese is like my pet peeve. And so a mother had said something about mac and cheese. I know the lady, she lives in a ginormous multi-gazillion-dollar house. And so I went up to her afterwards and I'm like, hey, I got a question for you. I go, I know what house you live in. Isn't it that one over there? And she's like, yes. And she's getting all fluffed up. And I said, and you must have these wonderful dinners. And she says, yes, we're dignitaries. We pull out the china, the fine linens, and she's going through the whole thing, just proud as can be. And I looked at her and I said, do you whip out the mac and cheese for them? And the woman got mortified. And I said, well, wait a minute. You're telling me that your children are your most, I mean, they're your family. They're your children. You've grown and developed these things. They're prized beings in your life, but yet you're willing to give them one food and your esteemed guest another? Mm. And she didn't know what to say. But that's really what happens in our society. For whatever reason, it's like people think that they can give the cheap, easy food to a kid because they just want them to eat, not recognizing that they're creating the health foundation, again, for when they're 50.
Wow. Wow. If you'd have said that to me, I would have been floored too, because I got to admit, I'm guilty of that. For a long time, we've been just feeding our kids mac and cheese because it's a simple, and get them to shut up kind of food,
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I also love the part that you, when you talked about in the womb, it reminded me of an article I read a few weeks ago where they tested women's breast milk today and compared it to years gone past, and that today it's just not as healthy as it used to be.
No, it's got a lot of plastics in it too.
Yeah. And that's kind of a frightening concept. What I would add to this in terms of an answer is that, according to the Morris-Massey model of development, your child's going to go through these 3 different stages. The first stage will be the imprinting stage, and then they go through a modeling stage and a socialization stage. So if you get them early, like you said, as early as possible, the children will just basically imprint upon what they want to do and further model down the road what you're practicing. So if you're practicing and providing healthy meals, you're eating those and you're also serving them, and not just the mac and cheese, right? Because that's not a healthy item. So you serve them the good stuff. They will be more accustomed, and it'll be easier for them to continue that pattern throughout the rest of their lives. And even when they get older and they want to say, mom and dad doesn't know anything anymore because you lied to me about Santa Claus, and what else have you been lying to me about? So, still when it comes to health and nutrition, especially if you take Adita Lang's advice and understand what food really is, it's just fuel, and instill that in terms of what children should understand and learn at a very early age, there's a good chance, better than average chance, that they will continue to eat in healthy ways. So I love what you had to say. That's super. And this kind of bridges into the third question, because the reality is this is not always easy. And as children get older, it becomes even more of a struggle at times. So what kind of struggles are common with those that are trying to move towards eating healthy?
Well, one of the things I think is important to kind of keep in mind is that your child will not starve.
Right.
So that really is, and people who know me and have seen me with my kids as they were growing up, I remember my daughter one day saying, I don't want to eat that. I don't like that. And I looked at her. There was people around me. I looked at her and I said, oh, I guess you'll starve. And I walked away. And all these other mothers are like, what do you mean? You're just going to let her starve? Oh my God. And I'm like, wait for it. Wait for it. And like within 30 minutes, she comes up to me and goes, you know, Mom, I'm hungry now. And I'm like, oh, great. There's your food. Okay, great. Excellent.
Right.
So I think that's really important because for whatever reason, parents tend to panic. And even if my daughter didn't eat dinner that night, it's okay. She'll be fine the next morning. But we are the ones who are creating these palettes in them. And so we have to be able to maneuver with that. The one thing I have always done is I use my Cuisinart and my Vitamix to hide everything under the sun. Just recently, because my daughter will tell you she doesn't like onions, she doesn't like tomatoes, she doesn't like garlic. She's had that ever since she was born. Okay. But she doesn't know it because it's always been blended in the food. And so then as she's gotten older now, I've actually pulled her into the kitchen and I've said, come on, let's make this together. And she'll be like, but wait, there's onions. And I'm like, yeah, you've been eating this whole time. So now she's like this new person. Now you ask her, she says, yeah, I eat garlic and I eat tomatoes and I eat Brussels sprouts, because now she knows because she's actually in the kitchen working it. And that's the other thing, is really get your kids' hands dirty in the kitchen. I think that's huge. So between getting them in the kitchen and also recognizing that it usually takes kids 4 times to like something. So with my kids, we made it a rule. You're going to have to taste it at 4 different tastings. And then after that, you can tell me if you love it or hate it. So it's gotten to the point where like my son will be like, okay, this is the second time I'm tasting this. I'm not really digging it, but I've done 2. I'm like, that's great. You got 2 more to go. And more than likely by the 4th time, they'll be like, yeah, you know what? I think I kind of like this now. Which is, this miraculous thing that just kind of occurs. So that, hiding the food, if you need to blend stuff up, there's all sorts of different meals that you can make where you can blend stuff up. No one's going to know it's there. But to me, it's imperative that you always add in fruits and vegetables to whatever meal you're making. So you got to figure out ways of doing it. And then on the other note, a smoothie is such a powerful thing, because you can hide all sorts of stuff in a smoothie. And I go even one step further and I make ice cream pops with them. So with leftover smoothie, I freeze them and they're ice cream pops, but they've got plant-based protein in there. They've got kale, cilantro, avocado, and then they're sweetened up with pears or bananas or something like that. And so people, again, will look at me like strange, because my daughter will eat 2 or 3 of them. And they'll be like, you're letting your daughter eat 2 or 3 popsicles? And I'm like, it's not your ordinary popsicle. That's like a full meal. So you have to play around, and you have to be able to just really realize you're not going to hurt your kid by not giving in to what everyone else gives into.
Fantastic advice. I mean, I can't really add anything to it. I do know that some of the struggles are, fast food. We don't have time in this world, it seems. And so meal preparation gets delayed or just annexed altogether because we just don't seem to have time. So, McDonald's seems to be easy. You just drive through and get the McDonald's or the quick fix foods.
Well, I think, the other thing too is setting up your refrigerator, especially when you have kids. There almost needs to be like this, not a parenting coach, but in a weird way, kind of like a parenting household coach who comes in and helps you set up your refrigerator for ease, helps you set up closets and cabinets, the whole 9 yards, because that's going to make your life easier. So I teach clients how to pre-cut their vegetables and store them in airtight containers so that things are in the refrigerator, how to make hummus and carrots and make that available on the lower shelves so kids can actually go into the refrigerator and grab a snack. And it's a snack that, I've approved kind of thing. So I put that stuff on the lower shelves for them. I put the other stuff on the higher shelves for it. All that makes a huge difference. And then even on the speed thing, it's quicker to run into like a grocery store and get a sandwich made sometimes than even going to like McDonald's, but yet you're going to get something better. Right.
Super. That's super advice. And you've already answered a little bit of the 4th question, which is what solutions? I mean, these are fantastic solutions. I like the 4-step idea with your children at home and trying to get them to, you're going to try this for 4 times, and over time it helps with the transition.
Yeah.
Great idea. And also the food preparation. And if there's a coach like you out there that can come over and help me get my kitchen organized, it would be fantastic.
I'll do it. Absolutely. You know, and the thing about getting your kids in the kitchen, get them involved in the kitchen, because then when they look at you and they go, ooh, I don't want to eat that, you can look at them and say, but you made that. So at least
Yeah.
taste it, you
Yeah.
know, or taste it while you're cooking it and making it. I think one of the most impactful things for children is to understand that a recipe, that you can alter the flavors. So I've gone into schools and I'll do smoothies, for example, and I'll start the smoothie with ice, kale, cilantro, and the kids will be like, ew. And I'll go like, well, taste it. And they'll be like, ew, and they'll taste it and they're going, gross. And I'll say, okay, so what do we need to sweeten it? And I'll have dates and pears and bananas, and these kids will start picking stuff, and I'll say, okay, let's try it. We'll throw something in, then all of a sudden they're like, wow, this is really yummy. And I'm like, but remember, it had kale and cilantro in there, right? And they're like, wow. Then I get these notes from the mom saying, you had my kid eat kale and cilantro, how'd you do that? But, you know, they start to learn that flavors can be manipulated, and that's an important thing for them.
Very good. Yeah. It's like what I teach is a growth mindset over fixed mindset. And that's really a good example of kids learning, and actually adults too, just learning that, oh, if you have kale in your Vitamix shake or whatever, it's going to taste like crap because kale tastes bitter and blah, right? But that's a fantastic thing to do. A great lesson. I'm going to try that myself with my own kids. I think that's a great idea. Okay, so what other advice do you have for parents in particular when it comes to nutrition and health and fitness that maybe we haven't covered already?
Well, I think most people don't recognize, and I said this earlier about the sugar. It's not just sugar, it's sugar, flour, dairy, and alcohol. And ideally, every single meal and snack should have 0 to only 1 of those in there. So that means that if you're going to have a sandwich with bread, you can't really have cheese in there, because then you're having 2. So if you decided, hey, I want the bread, then don't put in the cheese. Put in turkey, put in lettuce, put in tomato, put in all the other stuff. But you're going to have to choose which sugar you have. And so on that same breath, if that's your lunch and you're going to have it with sweet tea, well, now you got to make a choice. Do I really want the bread or do I want the sweet tea?
Right.
And start to choose which one of those you have, because most people have health challenges and weight challenges, ideally because of too much sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because, a client earlier today had coffee, cream and sugar, toast and jam and juice. Well, that's all sugar.
Sugar bomb.
Yeah, it's like, oh. And by the time he gets to the office, someone will say, hey, would you like a bagel? And it's like a completely unconscious response where it's like, yeah. And it's because he had a high from the caffeine and the sugar, and he's coming off the high, and now the bagel is presented to him. So it's kind of like, yeah, that looks really good. Let me have that. And so we got to get our system where we're using more protein and fat to kind of help stabilize our blood sugar for longer periods of time. And I think that's super important. The other thing when it comes to exercise is I think I blame myself and some of my friends for this, because when I used to teach classes and do a lot of training, I would tell people, look, you need to work out 3 to 4 days a week for 60 minutes. And honestly, when they came to me and they said, oh, you know what, I only got 42 minutes in, I was like, what did you do? You didn't get your 60 minutes. And so what happened is people decided, like, wait a minute, if I can't do 60 minutes, then I'm not going. And they stopped.
It's all or nothing, huh?
People were just like, I don't have 60 minutes. I'm not going to go. So now my whole thing is about like, no. American College of Sports Medicine said 150 minutes to 300 minutes of activity. And activity is anything that increases your heart rate and makes you sweat. So ideally, you could wake up and brush your teeth and do some squats and lunges. And then later on during lunch, go walk a lap somewhere. And then in the afternoon, finish off with a little, guided exercise program. And just kind of accumulate your minutes. And then that way you don't just do nothing. Because even if you said, you know what, I have 0 time, okay, I can do squats and lunges, but that's all I can do. That's not going to make a difference. And I'm looking at that person going, wait a minute, if you did nothing and all of a sudden you're doing something, it's going to make a difference. You may not see the results, as quickly as you would if you were doing 60-minute workouts, but through time, you're going to get stronger and you will see some kind of results from it. So you want to always make sure that you're incorporating some kind of activity.
Right. And what I found in that world is that even if you start off at 30 minutes a day, that it'll impact your sleep at night, and you'll get more rest at night, and therefore you won't need as much sleep, and you'll have extra time later on to do the 60 minutes versus the 30 minutes.
Yep.
Step by step. Maybe because some people just don't have 60 minutes to give every day at this point. But you got 15 minutes. Find 15 minutes. Let's start with 15 minutes. And then maybe instead of, waking up at 7, you get up at 6:45 tomorrow, and you give yourself an extra 15 minutes. And over time, you'll see that you won't need 10 hours in the bed at night because you're not really sleeping. You're bouncing around. You're sleeping solid for a good 6-7 hours, and that's all you need. And you can get up and you have an extra hour in the morning to do the exercise. And then that just revs up your metabolism for everything else you do throughout the rest of the day. Another thing I would suggest is don't eat, 4 hours before you go to sleep. You need at least 4 hours between the last meal and the time you go to sleep, because you don't want your body in digestion mode while you're trying to sleep, because you won't sleep well. So
of course,
boom, get that good sleep, be rested in the morning, get some exercise in, and your day's ready to go. I mean, that's the secret for me.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it in the morning, because some of us can't, get it in the evening,
or just taking little bouts of it. I had one client, she has no time. So I said, fine, then instead of walking through the shortest route through the parking lot, go the long route to get to your office, use the stairs. And so we created this whole thing that she does now throughout the day just to get her minutes in.
Super.
Yeah.
There are solutions out there, that's for sure, right? If we just open our minds up, we can find answers to all this stuff.
We sure can. It's crazy. It really is, but we can do it.
Well, super. Thank you so much. We've answered 5 key questions today about nutrition and health. I want to thank Adita Lang for helping us solve these questions and resolve and come up with some, just great ideas. I'm going to actually put them into use myself.
Good.
That's fantastic. I'm going to get my kids to eat kale this week. We watch. It's going to be in a smoothie if it's in nothing else, right?
There you go. Exactly.
So for the viewers out there, if you want to learn more about this, you want to reach out and get a hold of Adita Lang and read her book or contact her, how would people go about doing that, Adita?
I am at aditalang.com. So that's ADITALANG.com. And you can find everything about me there.
Super. I love it. One portal connects you to everything.
Yep.
Making it easy on everybody. Thank you again. If you guys want to continue this conversation, wherever you see this video, there's probably going to be a place for you to comment below. We can keep the conversation going there. I'll be happy to engage in discussion. If you have any ideas for future parenting talk, I just put those ideas down there below. We'll get to them at some point. I promise you that. If you want to contact me, reach me at my Facebook page, Star Family Coaching, or go to my website, starfamilycoaching.com. That's going to wrap this section up. And I just want you guys to know that there's love out there. It's for you. Grab a hold of it and keep talking, because that's how we get more information. Till next time, farewell, my friends.